Opendoor closed Monday's trading session at $9.29 per share, up $1.18 or about 14.5%. It even pushed through the $9 mark intraday before closing strong. For a stock that has been fighting heavy selling pressure over the last couple of weeks, today's session felt like a breath of fresh air for long-term holders. There was no single headline press release or SEC filing that explained the move, but if you look at the underlying developments around the company, you can see a story beginning to unfold that could justify why the market is starting to lean back toward the bull side of the trade. The first element is the exchange between Kaz Nejatian, Opendoor's new CEO, and Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood. Over the weekend, a user asked Kaz on X about enabling home buying with Bitcoin or other cryptos. Kaz responded directly, saying, "We will. Just need to prioritize it." Vlad Tenev then jumped in and said, "Can help you with this." Kaz replied, "Let's talk. DM's open." That may sound like a casual social media back and forth, but it hints at something much bigger. It suggests that Opendoor is open to, and possibly already exploring, the tokenization of real estate and new ways of bringing crypto infrastructure into its platform. This is not a gimmick. Tokenization could eventually allow fractional ownership of homes, easier transfers, and a new layer of liquidity in a market that has always been slow, paper-heavy, and capital-intensive. If a company like Robinhood is offering to collaborate, that indicates interest from the fintech side and could accelerate the timeline for pilots or prototypes. For long-term investors, this matters because it positions Opendoor not just as an iBuyer but as a technology platform that could bridge traditional real estate with digital assets. Imagine a future where someone browsing Opendoor can see tokenized shares of properties, trade them, or use smart contracts to handle closing. Even if that future is years away, the fact that the company's leadership is openly talking about it with high-profile fintech leaders signals ambition and openness to innovation. This is exactly the kind of optionality that a growth investor likes to see. The second element is Kaz's own comment about the upcoming earnings call. He said he wants to allow everyday shareholders to ask questions from management during the next earnings call. That may seem like a small governance tweak, but it's actually a big deal. It says to retail holders, "We see you. We value you. We want you to be part of the conversation." It also reduces information asymmetry. Instead of analysts dominating the Q&A, people who actually own the stock can ask direct questions about strategy, product launches, and execution. That level of transparency could attract more long-term capital and help rebuild trust after a turbulent couple of years. When you combine these two threads, tokenization talk and investor access, you start to see a company reframing its identity. It's not just buying and selling houses anymore. It's building a platform, adding technology layers, and trying to create a more participatory relationship with its shareholders and its customers. That's a narrative shift, and markets trade on narrative as much as they do on numbers. Of course, there's also the pure price action side. Monday's rally came after 2 days of cooling off from last week's big moves. Volume picked up as the stock crossed $9, suggesting that some shorts may have been covering and some momentum players may have been adding. We've seen before how Opendoor can move sharply when flows line up. But what gives this move more credibility is that it's happening against a backdrop of actual product launches, insider buys, and leadership changes, not just speculation. Insider Eric Wu has been adding to his position, Keith Rabois has been signaling confidence, and Kaz has been recruiting top talent from big tech. These are not the actions of a management team battening down the hatches, these are the actions of a team going on offense. It's worth noting that the broader housing market also threw up some positive data. New home sales in August were up over 20% year-over-year, median home prices remain elevated, and mortgage applications have stabilized. Those trends feed directly into Opendoor's core economics. Higher prices and steady demand improve margins on its inventory. Even modest improvements in market turnover can translate into much better quarterly results than the conservative guidance the previous board gave at the last earnings call. So the macro backdrop is a tailwind rather than a headwind right now. Still, as bullish as today felt, it's important to stay measured. Big one-day moves are great, but they don't guarantee a trend reversal. The company still has to execute. Tokenization and crypto partnerships are exciting but early. Retail access to earnings calls is a positive but won't change the fundamentals overnight. The housing market could soften again. And we know from experience that Opendoor stock can be volatile in both directions. So the real test will be follow-through. Does the stock hold above $9? Do we see sustained volume? Do more institutions disclose stakes like Jane Street did? Do we get concrete announcements on new products and partnerships? Those are the signposts that can turn today's surge into a genuine new leg higher. For the open army, retail investors who have held through the rough patches, today is a moment to acknowledge progress. The leadership team is not only talking about big ideas but also shipping new buyer features like 7-day home test drives and 100-day home warranties. They're hiring top talent who believe in the mission of making home ownership matter. They're floating cutting-edge concepts like tokenization, and they're inviting shareholders into the conversation. This is what rebuilding a growth company looks like. It's also a reminder of why conviction matters. Stocks rarely turn when everything looks perfect. They turn when fundamentals start to improve even as sentiment is still cautious. If you believed in Opendoor at lower prices, the optionality you were betting on may finally be taking shape. That doesn't mean load up recklessly, it means watch closely, evaluate the new information, and be ready for volatility on the way up as well as on the way down. Looking ahead, the next catalysts to watch are the rollout of the new buyer-side product in Texas, any follow-up on the tokenization discussion with Vlad Tenev, the format and content of the next earnings call, and further disclosures of insider or institutional buying. Each of these could reinforce the narrative that Opendoor is moving from survival mode to innovation mode. Each could bring new classes of investors into the stock. Monday's session showed that when even a whiff of that narrative catches, the stock can move sharply. The challenge now is to turn that whiff into a sustained story. With leadership making transparent moves, insiders showing confidence, and high-profile fintech CEOs engaging publicly, the pieces are there. Now it's about execution and communication. So as you digest Monday's action, think about it as more than just a chart. Think about it as a signal of shifting perception. The market may be starting to price in not only a recovery in Opendoor's core business but also the potential for entirely new revenue streams and technological moats. If those materialize, today's price could look cheap in hindsight. If they don't, the volatility will remain. Either way, the company is no longer standing still. For viewers of this channel, my commitment is to keep breaking down these developments calmly and rationally, just as we did when the stock was falling. Today's rally doesn't change the need for clear eyes and steady hands. It does, however, give us a chance to look forward with a bit more optimism. Opendoor has survived the storm, it's making bold moves, and the market is beginning to notice. Let's see if this is the start of a trend or just a spark. Either way, it's an exciting moment for everyone following the story. Stay tuned, stay informed, and keep watching the fundamentals as well as the flow. We'll cover every step of this journey together.